Thank you for being here with us today. I would like to introduce you to Paul. I've gotten a lot of my great advice for the way I live from him. So I would have to say he's been a great mentor to me. So I'm just going to allow him to introduce himself and then we'll go from there.
Well, that's an honor because I look up to you and I think you do a lot of great things. I think you already do a lot of things that I would recommend doing anyway. So I didn't know that you got a lot of your information from me, but um, yeah, I love following you and honored to have you a part of our little group. So what should I say? I don't know. I'm a functional nutritional therapist, health coach. I would consider master health coach. I've got thousands of hours under my belt. I've been health coaching in Vegas majority for about 11 years, and just work with a lot of people and empowering them on their path to be self-reliant when it comes to food and health and sleep and mindfulness and all the things that we would consider to be crucial to living an amazing life.
And I
So I
honestly
think.
think that style of life or like living a real food, and you call it SHT, which do you want to kind of talk about what SHT means?
It doesn't stand for what it sounds like, but we do like that it sounds like that, because then we can use little phrases like this,
Yeah.
or we can say I am the SHT, or we got little SHTers running around that are eating real food and they're healthy as heck. So, but it stands for superhuman transformation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love it.
it's the encompassing. I mean, it's the encompassing methodology that's like all of the foundations for health kind of tied into one. So
Yeah. And I think almost
yeah,
it's a remembering rather than like a new way of living, because this is the
absolutely.
way we used to eat.
Right.
This is what we had access to. This is what our, body is used to, rather than kind of modernized way of living and eating and without the meditation and connect to nature. And so I think it's a remembering. And so when I teach a lot of these practices, it's going against like mainstream. It's going against like the main knowledge. And so it sometimes seems like out of the box, or it sometimes seems like to
It
go
seems
against
weird.
them.
Yeah, it seems woo woo. It seems almost unbelievable when we
Yeah.
recommend some of the things that we recommend, because everyone's just kind of so disconnected from the way that we used to be. You know, but yes, people. You go back and track maybe back to your great grandparents. They probably lived a lot closer to the way that we do. But I know a lot of people. Maybe I don't know how many generations that would go back, because some people's great grandparents were in the processed food generations. But yeah, it's in some ways it's like very difficult for people to believe what we recommend them to do, and at the same time it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like when they give it a shot in their heart, they're like, well, this kind of felt right, but I just, my mind wouldn't let me believe it because I've just been conditioned another way. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what you and I are here to do. We're here to wake people up.
Yeah. And then once you're in it and once you're doing it, you're like, oh, this feels exactly in alignment. This feels right. This is like what I'm supposed to be doing. So first, I just kind of want to define kind of what we've been talking about is and the way of eating with that, like the functional way of eating real whole food. Like, what does that mean to eat real whole food?
Oh, well, I mean, if you stop and ask the question, you know, um, first of all, what is it that most people want when they come to see you and me? They're looking for some kind of a change. They're looking to see specific changes, feeling better, losing some fat, probably a big one, right? Specific symptoms and conditions. And a lot of people want a better relationship with food because I mean, most of our clients, I don't know how old yours are, but most of mine mid-30s, mid-40s and up, like they're adults, right? So they've had time for that dysfunction to kind of set in. Whereas when you're younger, like you're so resilient, like you don't really see a whole lot of that stuff happening. But when we think about what we really want from these changes, it's like you and I are saying, it's like we want to reconnect with the way that we're meant to be and live an amazing life. I think
Yeah.
all of us started out having dreams and thinking anything was possible. And then we get sucked into, I don't know, like this modern world and modern expectations and modern food. And like you said, it's just really a disconnection from the way that we're meant to be. There's so much confusion and misinformation and even disinformation, like around, especially in the health realm. I mean, you take nutrition as just one example. You got the polar opposites of freaking plant-based versus carnivore, and people were conflicted about like wanting to eat for health versus eat for morality versus eating for the planet, and nobody knows what to do. And so most people, I feel like, have kind of grown up buying into these false narratives, but it's unknowingly, right? Because we were all a part of that. I was a part of that. And they do that for years and decades, and all of a sudden they have this damage that shows up, and it's symptoms. That's the body's way of communicating to you that it's something off. So by the time they get to you and me, they've tried all the diets, they've done the Weight Watchers, and they've ran around freaking trying to make their points. And what happens? They can't stick with it. Or like you were saying earlier before we got on about cutting calories. They've cut the calories and they see results for a temporary period of time, and then their body shuts down. I've got, I think almost 100% of my clients come to me, they've done keto, and they say, keto really worked for me. Okay, so why aren't you doing it right now? Because it's just, some of these things are not sustainable. And I feel like the same thing with the workout programs, right? Everyone comes to us and they've tried all the freaking brutal, working out 2-a-days and marathons and half marathons. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but I just feel like, people are looking for some clarity and confidence when it comes to this. And we've never been taught or never asked the right questions when it comes to, especially if we're talking about nutrition, because you said, let's first talk about what is real food, right? No one's really been taught how to look at this in a way that makes sense. And so that's what we try to do. It's just communicate, like, hey, let's just really think about, like, what is it that we're doing here? Let's connect with what it is that food is supposed to be doing for us. And when we understand that, then the choices start to become very, very clear. And it's not what we're doing right now. And when people make these changes, I mean, their lives are completely different. It's not that, they lose some weight and they feel better and they see some blood work improvements and all those little subjective and objective markers they're looking for, but they show up to life different and better, and they can hike with their kids and they can play, and they have the energy to go upstairs, and you know what I mean? Like, their life has changed in ways they just have no idea. So but yeah, to bring it back to the food thing, what was the question? I forgot already.
Just like what eating whole food looks like, because I think
what does it look like? Okay.
Yeah. If we just want to first start with defining it, like if I'm going to eat a whole food diet, like, and I'm going to go to the grocery store, like, what would my grocery cart look like? Just, I mean, not obvious, just like in general, like, what would be the things I would want to look for?
Let's say a more general, broad, flexible, and accepting way of doing things. When you say whole foods or real foods, it's literally real food. I mean, it's like, the cliche, the perimeter of the grocery store, your fruits and your vegetables and your meats and your dairy products, your eggs. So things like that, things that are not packaged or minimally packaged or processed, although we buy like olive oil in a bottle and things like that. But that would be something relatively close to a whole food, real food diet. Now, I do have clients come to me and they think that whole food, real foods means raw. And I do believe that the first priority is just, and you and I both, it's just real food in general. So whether you cook it or don't cook it isn't as important as making the right choices in the first place. So yeah, that would be the definition of a whole food, real food way of eating, which would be much more in alignment with the way our ancestors did, and it gets the results that we're looking for sure.
Yeah.
Then the question is like, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, and then it's not like that's what you have to stick to. Like, of course I still have chocolate, or of course I still have my sweets and alcohol. I just make better choices. And I think that's what's the most important thing to remember, is when you're living this type of lifestyle, the first thought is like, well, what do I have to give up? And people are thinking those things like, oh, I can never have sweets anymore, I can't have chips anymore, I can't have alcohol anymore. And it's like, no, you just make a better choice. So you're switching from maybe like Lily's chocolate, which has a better sugar content than like a Hershey's bar, and you're comparing the ingredients. You can still have potato chips that you can buy, you don't have to make them, but they're maybe baked in coconut oil or avocado oil instead of fried in inflammatory oils or seed oils or canola oil or something like that. So it's never that you are restricting yourself and that you can't have anything. It's just making a better choice in what you're choosing. And I think that's like the most important part to stress, because I think when you're changing your diet or life, especially when you say the word diet, people automatically think like, all right, this is restrictive.
Yeah. So then, when you say a whole food, real food diet, that sounds like no processed food at all, right? And what you and I are advocates of is a real food way of eating, which is a little bit more flexible and adaptive to a modern lifestyle. And I think for a lot of people, because this is for your people, right, your audience, the first step would be, like you just said, it's not like thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go from 0 to 100, or I have to, it's all or nothing, either or. it's really finding out like, hey, I know that I like these things and I have a hard time giving them up. So what are some replacements for them, or what are some alternatives that are made with better ingredients? Because I guarantee you, everything that you think you have to give up, there's an alternative for it. You want tortillas, we got tortillas.
Yeah.
Like, you want chocolate, we got chocolate. We got better options. You know, if you want cookies and crackers and chips, we got them. And we're not saying it's extremely healthy, but we have those alternatives. And that's in the context of trying to do a real food way of eating, which means that a lot of the other stuff you're consuming is also kind of fresh, real food based, you know?
Yeah.
But that's
And
a very good point. People on this journey don't have to, it's not an all or nothing, because that's why people have failed before they come to see us. I feel like we're the and I'm included in this, so I'm saying this to myself too. We're the misfits of the health world, right? Everybody comes to us after they tried everything else. They're like, okay, I give up. I just don't even know what to do anymore. And it's because of the all or nothing. It's because of the ketos, the vegans, the carnivores, it's like the fasting maniacs. It's like, you need something that is livable and sustainable for a lifetime. And this is part of what we're saying is you gotta learn how to read labels, read ingredients, choose things made with better ingredients.
Yeah. And I think since you brought that up, just like maybe like top 5 are the ones that would come to mind of like top offenders to really stay away from. Like if you're gonna read a label, like to me, I always say like seed oils, but I think for you, like what would you name, like if you're gonna start, if you're still eating some processed food, right? Like what would be, if you're gonna pick up a label, like definitely stay away from this.
Okay, well, pro tip, main things to avoid when reading labels, okay? So depending on, I know your audience probably has some relatively plant-based people, but I just think wheat is just one of those things that most people need to give up, and it's a huge trigger for almost everybody, unless you're talking about like a true fermented sourdough with some ancient ancestral einkorn wheat and some rye, like something like that, but that's not what we're talking about here. So I'd say especially if you're reading a label, like that's not a loaf of sourdough.
Yeah.
So, so when reading labels, I'd say wheat, one of the number one offenders. Most people, when they take that out, they notice immediate benefits from it. And then the highly processed plant-based oils, or you call them seed oils. So things like canola oil, corn oil. Like, how do you get oil out of a corn? Soybean oil. How do you get oil out of soybean? Like vegetable oil. There's nothing vegetable about vegetable oil. I don't think there's anything vegetable that takes part in that whole process. So, but anyway, corn, soybean, canola, vegetable, safflower, sunflower. Sunflower is kind of one of those gray areas ones. But I just think I agree with some of the people that we follow, the really high omega-6 ones and the ones that are highly processed are, most of your followers are probably looking to feel better, have better energy levels, and lose body fat. And if you're trying to do that, then those industrial oils are inhibiting your body's ability to create energy from fat, which is one of the keys to losing excess body fat. It's like clogging up your energy creation system. So those two things, I would say, like the wheat and then the highly processed plant-based oils, or gluten-containing grains, which is usually 99% of the time going to be wheat, and then the highly processed plant-based oils. And then you can go into things I would consider kind of common sense, like artificial sweeteners, artificial flavors, artificial colors, the FDNC, the dyes. And that would be the main things to look for.
Yeah, absolutely. And reading labels, just getting into
and just
that,
reading labels,
because I do have a lot of clients that have said, like, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, I've never read a label. And I mean, and I was shocked, but like, I have to understand, like, that's where a lot of people are, like, where they just like, oh, I think this looks healthy, we're going to buy it. That's it. Just like,
it says organic on the front, sold at Whole Foods or Sprouts, gluten-free.
Yep.
It's got to be good,
Has like those labels or whatever. So you're thinking, oh, it has to be healthy for me. And it's like, but what's in it?
The more badges and stamps on it, the better. Like the P approved, paleo approved. But you're bringing up a good point. And that is, I forgot what the point was. Oh, when people are reading labels, it's hilarious, because this was me again. When I make jokes about people, I'm making jokes about myself, because I was just like that, and I came from there, right? So you go and you turn the thing around and you're reading the label, but it's like you're just reading the label. You don't even know what you're looking for. Everybody just does this little, and it's like, so what did you just get from that? Like if I asked anybody, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
You just look at it, right? You feel like you're doing some good by reading the label, but what are you reading?
Yeah.
And then if you take it to the next level, some people are looking at calories, some people are looking at fat, some people look at protein. And we would say that that's almost irrelevant. It's secondary to what's primary, and what's primary is it made with good ingredients,
Yeah.
which is avoiding the things that we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say, when you're looking to switch into this lifestyle, and I'm saying this from experience as a all or nothing type person, like a lot of things for me are black or white, like I'm all in or I'm out. And coming from like the fitness competition, right? So the way I got my body was for pure aesthetics. It wasn't for feeling good. So I felt like
Hmm.
shit. I felt horrible when I looked that good. Like my mental health tanked. I couldn't focus in work. I hated going to the gym, especially by the end of it. I mean, I remember just like sitting there and unable to think. And so I was
Hmm.
clearly eating and exercising just for aesthetics. So I think that's one point to point out, like we mentioned in the beginning of, well, what's your goal? And so when you're switching, going back to what I was saying, if you're an all or nothing person, I remember when I
Hmm.
started this type of lifestyle and I tried to go all or nothing, and it just felt overwhelming. And it's all about just like making those minute changes. And I have to say now, I think it's been a couple years, and I found that for myself, I lean more towards just like a carnivore diet. So I'm probably about
Hmm.
eating about a pound of meat a day, very minimal vegetables, sweet potatoes, safe starches, which we can talk about if you want to jump to that. But what I'm saying with that is that like it's a progression, and then it's about experimentation to see what works best for your body. Like I've been vegan, I've been vegetarian, I've been pescatarian, and I did those for long periods of time. Um,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until I tested out enough and switched things up to really find what worked for me. And,
Yep.
now I'm at that place where like, oh, I have, I think what we would call more of like a vitality, right? Like living
Hmm.
for or eating for health, aesthetics, energy, and kind of
Yeah,
that.
which gives you everything that you're looking for anyway. That's the magic of what we're doing, is that you don't have to do those extreme things. Although they may get results, they may not be the best way to do it. And when you said that about all or nothing, I mean, not only is it difficult for you, but it's freaking annoying, right? To try to be in social situations, how annoying are you when you're like, I can't do that. I don't, right? Like, it's not a fun way to live. So, in what you're saying, and what we've come to is this. I think for your audience, a really important point is flexibility. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's like with a lot of my clients, we embark on this journey and we're coming up with goals, and maybe years ago I used to push like 100% all, most of the time. Like now it's like, okay, let's build in some flexibility. Like, when I have a day a week or a day a month where you do whatever the heck you want, and the rest of the time you're on it, or maybe we start with 2 meals a day that are good and one meal that's like you're kind of flexible with it. I think the flexibility is important because that's one of the key things to helping you sustain this for a lifetime. You need
Yeah.
that.
And I think too,
And you want to be fun.
yeah. And once you
You
start
want to be
making
annoying.
changes, you eventually become this new person that no longer wants those things anyways, right? So like for
Over
me,
time. Absolutely.
yeah, like your taste buds change. So I love
Hmm.
sweets and I still do, but my sweets, like I had a healthy yogurt, like Strauss yogurt with some berries, and some grain-free granola. And like this, it was like such a treat. Like that's my
Hmm.
dessert. It was like, oh, because it's like fresh berries, fresh fruit, and the
Yep.
good type of dairy. And so that now is way more appealing to me than like a Snickers bar or Ben and Jerry's. Like that tastes better because my taste buds have changed. And so now I'm no
Hmm.
longer a person that wants food that just doesn't serve my purpose.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it
not only have your taste buds changed, but also um, inadvertently, when we eat this way, we're eating for nutritional value, right? So your body, what are the reasons that we have these cravings and urges? The hunger signal, I feel like, comes from nutritional deficiencies and or a lack of energy, because most people are kind of carb burners, right? Sugar burners, and then most people are eating very skimpy. If they're eating animal foods, they're eating chicken breasts and egg whites, and bowls of oatmeal. Like, it's like, so when you start to eat for nutritional value, and you supply and you flood your body with these nutrients that the body actually wants and needs, and you train your body how to be metabolically flexible and fat burning, then the hunger signals for the things that you used to crave go away, as well as your appetite kind of changes, because you know what makes you feel good. Like, it's
yeah.
almost like, like it's not worth it to me to do that. And honestly, I don't even want it. When I eat the way that I eat, and I have like as much freaking, like, for lunch today, I had a half a pound of ground beef with some liver and heart. and I had a little bit of some apples or some chopped up apples. Um, I don't, I don't want anything right now. You
Yeah.
can, it doesn't matter what it is. You can put it in front of me. I'm so satiated and satisfied. And so I think it's a combination of both of those things. It's like the nutritional sufficiency, the making energy from the right source, and then your taste buds change over time because intuitively you start to understand like this is what's good for me. This serves my body, and this does not. You know.
So what are some actionable steps people can take to, because I think it's really great to have the knowledge, but then it's like, well, how do I implement this? So what are some
Yeah.
actual steps people could take in order to be more metabolically healthy, or and how you mentioned or you said metabolic,
Nutritional sufficiency or something.
yeah, nutritional specific. So like that you're burning fat and that you're in that state. What are steps that they can take to get into that?
So I kind of just alluded to it, which is if you really understand, I don't think most people don't really understand why we eat food in the first place. Like when I ask my clients, like, okay, so what is the point of eating? Because it feels good? No. What is the ancestral, physiological, biological purpose of eating food? And that gets people to really think like, I don't know, I've never really thought about that. Almost always people say energy. And yeah, for sure, we're going to get some energy from food. But what else? Like, what else does food do? Like, what's the point, you know? And when you understand that, then your decisions start to become very clear. So the like this body that we are, like this does not come from air or water. This is food. That's it. And it's easy to see like a little baby growing up and like, okay, so that baby had to come from something, but it wasn't. I don't think it was leaves and carrots, you know, like it was. There's some nutrition value that has to go into that human person to build it. But even as adults, we are in a constant state of flux. Like our body's always replacing itself, and cells are dying. And I think it's estimated the digestive system replaces itself once every 3 to 7 days. The whole body, maybe every 3 to 7 to 10 years. I'm not sure what the accurate number is there, but this body's in flux. Like and so where does it come from? It comes from food.
Mhm.
So then when I understand that I want to eat in a way that nourishes my body and facilitates this amazing body and all the structure of the body and all the functions inside the body, and I want to eat in a way that nurtures my ability to use fat for fuel, which that's a new concept to a lot of people. You know, like, well, I mean, where do we get energy from in food in the first place? Most people understand sugar or carbohydrates. Some people have heard fat because of keto and low carb movements, you know. But again, if we just understand, hey, I'm trying to eat to build this body, to nurse this body, I'm trying to eat in a way that nurtures my ability to use fat for fuel, which ideally is going to be my body fat, then all of a sudden that makes my choices relatively clear. So
Yeah.
then to come back to your question, which was like, what is the first step? I think learning how to read labels, that's a really good first easy step, and choosing things made with better ingredients, because then at least you're not contributing to the toxic load so much. And then you start to find the things that are alternatives to things you have to give up. But then if we get into like what's the next step, first step into like the real food part of it, I would say just thinking in terms of eating the things that are going to nourish my body, eating the things or avoiding the things or minimizing the things that are going to contribute to what I want, which is fat burning. So, you know, we would be advocates for the most nutrient dense foods are going to be animal foods, your traditional fats like butter and the animal fats and coconut oil and stuff like that, and then also vegetables and greens. So that's covering your bases from a nutritional standpoint. And then from a energy creation standpoint, really what we're looking to do is just minimize the carbohydrate signal. You know, and we're not eliminating it. We just want it to be a smaller part of the deal so that the body prefers to use fat. And when the body learns how to use fat, I think the final piece there is just making sure that you're not grazing all day long, you know? So maybe just, you know, so first step would be moving towards real food in whatever way resonates with you. And that can be in that spectrum of vegan, plant-based to carnivore, but just focusing on nutritious, nutrient-dense foods. Maybe just thinking about minimizing, you know, not eating just a ton of fruit and starch, making the majority of what you eat the animal foods and the vegetables and things. And then making sure that you're not grazing all the time, which happens automatically when you eat real food anyway, you know, because every time you eat, you're disrupting your ability to use fat for fuel. But that's probably not an answer to what you wanted, which was a very simple,
No,
what's the first
no,
thing?
no, 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 no. That's I honestly, you answered it better than I could have asked because I really wanted people to understand why we eat, because when that clicked for me, I went from, oh my gosh, all I eat is muscle meat, so all I'm eating is like chicken breast and the steak and stuff like that, and then incorporating organs or even chicken thighs. Like I wouldn't even chicken thighs with the fat and skin and stuff like that, or
Hmm.
then taking like a turkey cartilage or the chicken cartilage and making my own broth and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I transitioned from like kind of the bodybuilding old school mentality of just chicken breast or just the meat, uh,
Or just the egg whites.
yeah, or the egg. Oh my God, the egg whites.
Mm.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
but then incorporate and understanding like the powers in the yolk or the beef liver or and incorporating all these organs. And then when you have the understanding of, those were seen as sacred um, food items in our with our ancestors. The person who killed the animal was the one that was granted the liver, or like the elder got a certain piece. But like those liver and organs and stuff were deemed sacred because they have high nutritional value. There's a
yeah.
reason that those are like, we used to eat all of the animal, and I think now we kind of, it's a myth to say that we just should be eating like the chicken breast or the muscle meat.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah.
why, back in your competing days, like why were you starving all the time? Because you're eating egg whites and freaking chicken breast and leaves, like that's not, it's just not satisfying. It's not nourishing. And to a lot of people, it's counterintuitive to say, well, now eat the egg yolks and eat the thighs and have the butter and the meat, because they're so conditioned with the whole calories in, calories out thing. And they haven't, and it's not their fault, but we haven't learned and understood the value of teaching the body how to use that for fuel. But to your point, it's like when you switch over to nutrient dense eating, then your appetite changes and your eating patterns change, because your body's not giving you a hunger signal because it's deprived of nutrients. And that's what happens a lot of times when we try to be skimpy, with our food, because we're doing the whole egg whites and low fat, and your body's screaming for nutrition. And when you start to flood it with nutrition, then your hunger patterns completely change.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect segue into one of the questions someone in my audience had asked was, how do you go from counting calories to intuitive eating?
Oh, well, well, do you want me to answer? You have something on that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'll give my little tidbit, and then because I think we might differ a little bit on this, but for a lot of
Mhm.
my clients, I'll have them start with counting calories if they've never done it before, just to see what they're eating. Because
Yep.
sometimes, I mean, just to bring food awareness so that they can see, like, oh my God, I'm eating, most women undereat. So they're like, oh my gosh, I'm eating 1,000 calories. Or holy cow, my sweet tea is 1,300 calories alone and with all the sugar, right? So sometimes I like
Mhm.
to incorporate tracking macros just for a couple days, just to bring that awareness, and then go from there. So I don't like to use it as like track everything as that needs to be your lifestyle, but I do
Yeah,
think it does help.
absolutely. Is that what you thought I would disagree with?
Maybe
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
no, I do agree. I think it can be extremely useful. I think that's one of the reasons that macros works for a lot of people, is because there's this huge awareness component. But as you and I know, it's not a way to live life for the rest of your life. Like, you want to enjoy life. So I guess, how do you transition to an intuitive way of eating? Well, now if we can understand the purpose of eating food, which is we're eating for nutritional value, and we're eating to create energy in a specific way, which is to create energy from fat. um, Once you have that as a focus, I feel like it just happens automatically. I feel like as you embark on this journey for yourself, having this experimental mindset is really useful. I always tell my clients that when we come up with goals and we learn some new concepts, it's like we don't ever have to look at this as I have to do this for the rest of my life. But I can do it as an experiment for a week or two or a few days to see what happens. And it's the same thing with what we're talking about here. As you transition into this way of eating, you can, once you feel comfortable, you feel better from doing what you consider to be better, then you can experiment and say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to track for a little bit, and I'm just going to eat what I consider to be intuitively till I feel satisfied or full. And I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. Like, and if it doesn't work out for you, you can go back to tracking, or you can go back and ask your health coach, like, what do I need to do here? But I would say the first step is just exactly what we're talking about, eating the way that we're talking about. That facilitates a little bit of an intuition, because otherwise you're fighting physiology. But when you align yourself with your physiology and you eat for nutritional value and you train your body how to use fat for fuel, now it's almost like you're one with your physiology, and your physiology nurtures and encourages your ability to just eat intuitively.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to call it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the key there is understanding that you're eating nutrient dense food and not like, something processed or unhealthy, because then uh, it makes it difficult to understand your hunger cues. So if I'm
That's
eating
right.
like in sugar, my body's burning it, I'm not giving it any nutrition, so I'm still hungry. So I'm thinking
Yes.
intuitively like, oh, my body's saying I'm still hungry, let's eat more. But you're
Yep.
not eating something that has nutritional value, so you're still going to be hungry. So I mean, I could, you
Yep.
could eat a whole thing of Ben and Jerry's, but you're not getting a nutrient, so you're still thinking, oh, I'm intuitively eating, let me eat more. So
Yeah.
there with what you had said was definitely eating for nutrient value. And then also checking with yourself, why are you eating? Because I'm for
Yeah.
sure a stress eater. So I need to understand, like, if I'm at the fridge, like, why am I here? Just like check
Yeah.
in and like, am I just stressed? Am I bored? Is am I really eating for hunger right now, or I'm eating for another reason? So just like take a moment to check in with yourself, to kind of uncover why you want to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love what you said there because context is everything, right? Um, there's a very thin, blurry line between gut feeling, intuition, physiology, and biology, like you're talking about. If I'm a sugar dependent, carb dependent person, then my intuition is telling me I need that cupcake, but I don't. It's not good for me. But and then a thin, blurry line between conditioned bias. Meaning that if I don't realize that my beliefs are not really my beliefs, but they're beliefs that I have just they've been implanted in me because that's all I've listened to or read or been a part of for my entire life. That's going to influence my decision making too. And so that's why you and I are both saying the first step to intuitive eating would be getting in the right context, because in the context of eating inappropriate foods, your signals are just completely off. And open your mind up to learning new info and things like that. But once you transition into a real food way of eating, then it makes a lot more sense to maybe listen to your body a little bit more, or a little bit differently. And then the next level would be what we're saying about eating for nutritional value, teaching your body how to use fat for fuel. And then in that context, it really gets to be intuitive, because it's like timing and it becomes irrelevant, right? Like you and I, we could probably skip an entire day of eating, no problem. We can eat 2 meals a day, no problem. We can eat 1 meal in 3 days, no problem.
Yeah.
We can or we can't, because it's just I guess our body's giving everything that it needs, and it's telling us that.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens too, because then when you're in that realm, your intuition starts to pick up on things even within the real food diet or the real food realm that don't resonate with you. So we have this general broad definition of real food. Once you get dialed into that general broad definition, you can start to pick up on, maybe calories isn't something that my body resonates with, or maybe nightshades or something that I don't do well on, or high oxalate foods, or you name it. There's a million different nuts and seeds. Arnica had a freaking my SHT fudge that's like almost world famous.
Mhm.
Not yet, but
Yeah.
but it's really famous with our people. We've made it with cashew butter for the longest time,
Wow.
and I've always felt like cashews are one of the more neutral legumes and beans. For most people they are. Like a lot of people have issues with almonds and walnuts and stuff. And one morning, Annika woke up with just this huge whelp on her face. And I was just like, what is going on with you? And she was like sneezing. And she's like, I think it's the fudge. I was like, can't be the fudge. And it was the cashews.
Oh, wow.
We switched over to sun butter, and she's totally fine with it. So anyway, the point there is that, the magic of this intuitive eating, is transitioning to real food, understanding what's the purpose of food is for nutrients and creating energy in the right way. And then within that context, it's easy to be intuitive. It's easy to, it's almost like your appetite auto-regulates itself to some degree. And even if it doesn't, and you want to experiment with it, it's easier to experiment with, pulling back on meals or, fasting protocols and things like that within that context. But then also within that context, you can really pay attention to things that mess with your body and fine tune your real food way of eating, which is going to be different from other people's real food way of eating.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just to be patient with yourself, because I think it
Yep.
does take time. Like more recently, this is something that you and I worked on for myself was at work when I'm doing my 12-hour shifts, I typically just eat 2 meals a day and I'm fine with that. But when I'm at the hospital and I'm under so much more stress and it's just a different environment, I'm not getting any sunlight because I'm indoors and it's different. And so from there, I needed to have breakfast. And so just experimenting and being like, okay, I'm going to add in this meal a little bit earlier than I typically would. I mean, that changed that for me and it was really helpful. So I think
Yeah.
just being patient and like, you know, I introduced raw cow dairy, but I can't handle processed normal dairy. I think a lot of people are
Mhm.
lactose intolerant. And I was like, I think most humans are lactose intolerant. And then I learned, this could be an entire different discussion about raw dairy and like the benefits and how it has all the fat, and I'm fine with that. So I think it's just about, you know, if you want to add dairy in, because, you know, take it out for a bit, see if that affects you, and then try to do
Mhm.
a alternative. But always remember that you're your best guinea pig, and to experiment on
Mhm.
yourself and see what works. Because no diet, no lifestyle, or like exact food is
Template.
the same for
Yeah.
yeah. You have
Yeah.
to
It's
just
going to be same for everybody. Yeah. 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 No. And what you said about the flexibility. So, um, I love that, being easy on yourself, because we get, a lot of us, because we're so driven, we get excited about a program, and then we want to follow it to a T. And then we hear this thing about, oh, Michaela and Paul said, 2 times a day. And then, so then there's people that would take that and say, oh, I have to do 2 times a day, and that's it, right? Meal. But what you're saying is, we'll be flexible with all of it. Like if you're, some things that we know trigger appetite and snackiness, and just require a different, maybe more flexibility and different way of eating, would be stress, which includes like really fatiguing work days, things where you're just really involved in something. Like appetite completely changes. So there you need to be flexible. With women, I mean, believe it or not, the majority of my clients are female. Around your cycle, like most of us kind of feel that intuitively. Like it's something it's hard to fight, and so don't fight it. Be a little bit more flexible around these times of your life and your life situations that kind of make you feel like it's harder to stick to your, what you would consider to be your ideal protocol or something like that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, being flexible is part important. So I think
Mhm.
we're kind of at the end. So I do want to add, I know that this could be an
At the
entire,
end,
yeah, we're kind of nearing the end here,
is
but
this
I
the
did,
beginning?
right? Seriously, this is the first part of the foundation. We haven't even talked about meditation or sleep or, but I do want to mention supplements.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'll kind of open it with my question is, like, how do you know what supplements to get for yourself? Like, does everyone need the same, or is there like one supplement everyone should take? Or how does someone say, like, go to a grocery store and be like, okay, this is what I need to pick? Or yeah, we'll start there before I add more to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have some thoughts on it, so, but you want me to answer. So,
Yeah.
but I could tell you, if you go back and look at some of my really old blog posts and what I did years and years ago, I had a pretty complicated, extensive list of things. And over time, the more that we learn the things that we learn, which I feel like a lot of us, we're kind of converging on the same principles, even within the real food realm, right? We're all converging. We all kind of eat the same way. People that have been with me for, 5+ years, like we all kind of eat the same. If we look at our meals, we're almost identical. Um, so the supplementation piece has kind of simplified itself over time. So if we come back to what it is that we're trying to do, we're trying to eat for nutritional value, right? We're trying to eat to be metabolically flexible from a nutrition standpoint. I know you're a big believer in this. We believe in eating animals nose to tail, because if I think about what me as an animal is, I'm not just muscle, right? So muscle is great, because if I want to build my muscle, then if I eat muscle, I give muscle to the muscle. But then this body is bones and ligaments and cartilage and tendons and brain and liver and organs. Like, it's a lot of other stuff. You're probably not getting that from salads and greens and broccoli and even muscle meat, right? And not that there's anything wrong with those things, because we all eat them, they're all great. So my first tier of supplementation is usually bone stock, trying to get people in the habit of drinking bone stock regularly, if not daily. Because bone stock, I'm sure most people are familiar with it, but bone stock, our ancestors have done this for a very long time. Bone stock is simmering the bones from the animal that you just ate, so that you can get all the nutrition out of it as possible. Because in the bones, we have like stuck to it. You'll see like the cartilage and some ligaments and tendons. So when you simmer the bones, all that dissolves into the water. So when you drink the water, the liquid, you're getting the ligaments and cartilage and tendons and connective tissue, but then also you got minerals that come from inside the bone that get into the water. So you got minerals, electrolytes, you got some bone marrow. So now this is like a modern day, I guess you'd call it hack or biohack, something like that. Modern day hack for eating an animal nose to tail, because most of us are not going to be eating all the what most people consider to be disgusting stuff, which I kind of like. But that's an easy way to do it. Like some bone stock most days. That's why bone stock is so popular now. That's why like chicken soul or chicken soup for the soul, and it was nourishing. Your grandmother, great grandmother, always give you some chicken broth or something like that when you're sick. So that to me is like a really good foundational step is consuming bone stock regularly, thinking animals nose to tail. So you and I are both big fans of organs. Most people, or I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people probably don't get excited about eating organs. So you can take organ supplements, which are really awesome. Collagen is really useful too. So that's kind of like the foundational animal-based nose to tail level: bone stock, collagen, organs, or organ supplements. And then I've got a few specifics after that. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think what I love so much about it is that it's affordable, right? So, because
Yeah,
most
I
of,
was going to say we haven't even pushed any supplements yet.
yeah, because when you're
Yeah.
thinking like, I'll buy some, and sometimes I will eat raw liver, I freeze it and I just eat it in cubes and it's gross and I just chase it down. And I'm okay with that because I don't like cooking it, I don't like the taste. And so eating it raw is fine. But to be more convenient, sometimes I'll just do liver supplements. So I do buy supplements and we can, I would love to talk about the brand that you recommend at the end as well.
Mhm.
In just a moment. But I think the other thing I would add to what you had mentioned is that understanding what you're supplementing for. So I don't really think
Mhm.
that everyone should take like a certain supplement because I think everyone's different. And so more recently, because I've been burning the candle at both ends, I've been getting sick a lot, especially my daughter's playing around kids. And so I started taking like immune pack. And so for me, that was
Mhm.
important because that
Mhm.
was what I needed supplementation for, right? I was getting sick
Yeah.
a lot, traveling. So looking at like what do I want to take supplement for, and then finding the best option. So, like
Yeah.
I was saying, the immune pack. But I do want
Yeah.
to
I
say,
love that.
really important is that not all supplements are created equal, and so a lot of supplements
Absolutely. Yeah.
are on the shelf. What's in them has already died and isn't viable anymore. A lot of them are like chemically made so that they're not actually from like the source or a plant or like the active ingredient of it.
Mhm.
And so that going to like Whole Foods, because you're thinking like, oh, this is healthy here, and then picking something off the shelf, you literally could just be buying like nothingness because whatever's in
Yeah.
it could be dead and your body can't assimilate it or use it. And so you're just wasting money. And so I think
Yep.
talking about, finding a reliable source is important.
Yeah. Yep. No, I love all that. There are a couple things you said there that I felt like I wanted to touch on, but anyway, that first level, we're not asking my clients are usually blown away that when they ask me about supplements, that's the first thing I say, like, let's just try to get some bone stock in most days and some collagen or something like that. So um, the priority is real food, by the way. So like there's not any amount of supplementation that's going to overdo or overcome or undo like a crappy way of eating. But sometimes we're looking for silver bullets, and we want what's the supplement that I need to take for that. But again, context is everything. So within the context of real food, understanding what the purpose of eating food is. Okay, now animals nose to tail, some bone stock collagen things. There's just a few things that I would say that I think most people would benefit from. And this is, I think you'll agree with this. If you listen to the hot shots and the functional medicine guys that, it's got all the followers and stuff, like there's consistencies you start to pull out of things. And one of them is D3. Most people are deficient in D. Most people don't spend as much time as we do out in the sun. They don't have a good tan like us because, we're told the sun is bad for you. And not that that's the only thing that comes from sun exposure. There's a lot of great things that come from sun exposure, but I would say D3 top of the list. Like 2,500 to 5,000 IU's of D. It doesn't hurt to take maybe like 500 to 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. I'm a big fan of K2. I like to have D balanced with vitamin A, but I'd say if I was just trying to keep things very, very simplistic, it would be the bone stock, collagen, organs or organ supplements, D3, K2, vitamin C, and then maybe some cofactors in there. So, but yeah, to your point on supplement companies and brands, if you're buying your supplements from Costco, CVS, Walgreens, Target, I mean, you could probably throw them away right now,
Yeah.
because quality is everything, especially when it comes to those. You got to think about supplements as these concentrated doses of things that we're trying to get in food, so and first of all, a lot of people are anti-supplement. I try to tell my clients you can't be that way because we have a great privilege to be able to take supplements if they're really good quality because our ancestors didn't have that ability. Our food's not the same these days. So if I know what I'm doing, I can take some really great things. I mean, I take a fistful of supplements 3 times a day. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like it's one of the reasons that I feel so good at 47. I'm stronger than I've ever been, sleep that I've ever slept, my virility, my freaking mental clarity, emotional, everything is just the best it's ever been. But quality is everything. Knowing what versions of nutrients to look for. Like there's a difference between beta carotene and vitamin A. There's a difference between D2 and D3. There's a difference between K and K2. So quality is important. Versions are important. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we'll add a link to, what's the company you use? I forgot the name.
Biotics Research, and I have a store with explanation of all the different things that we have in there,
Yeah,
and we offer like a symptom assessment where we can, like you said, sometimes thinking like, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? You said immune system, right? So there's some things which, by the way, everything that we just mentioned, D3, vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, copper, quercetin, like those are all immune boosting, and they're just good for general health anyway. But thinking in those terms, like, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? If I got a guy that comes to me and he's trying to put on muscle, I'm thinking about increasing natural testosterone and strength and virility. And so the supplementation could be a little bit different, or we add to what we're already doing just a little bit. So yeah, I think asking those questions, like, what is it? What's my particular dysfunction? Where is it that I need particular support? And if you're not sure about it, just knowing what it is that you want to see improve, and then working with a professional to try to figure that out would be useful.
yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think we'll do a link to your store or whatever, where you said you have that quiz. Is it on in your store?
Yeah, I tell you what, for your listeners, so I usually charge $165 for my symptom assessment. I think I'll just give it to them for free if they want. If they want to do a symptom assessment, and you say that you're with Michaela, like I'd be happy to do a symptom assessment for you, and it would probably come with some food and supplement recommendations, but you're under no pressure to do that. I'm not a very, like, Michaela can vouch for you. I'm not a pushy sales guy, at all.
I mean, that's huge. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I've done with you, and we've got, you've definitely helped me. So we will put the information in the link for anyone to sign up to do that. And then
Yeah.
also, yeah, and that way they can have access, because I know I use your the supplements that you use as well, so have access to that. And
Yeah, and some of the stuff we recommend is not anything that we sell too. I mean, it's something that we can get on Amazon. We'll recommend it on Amazon.
yeah.
But
Well, when
you know how.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what I absolutely love is your vetting process is when you're recommending something, you first go through like, okay, is this healthy? Like, is it EWG website or whatever? To
Yeah.
see like how high that scores, and then it goes into like, well, what's the reviews, and then using it on yourself. And so it's like this entire vetting process of not just like, oh, like I've heard that this is better or this has better ingredients. Like, are you gonna stick to it? Can like, is it actually, like, let's say deodorant, like, does it actually do what we're looking for? Are you still stinky? Like, trying it out, and then finally recommending it. And so
Yeah,
I know,
and using it ourselves too. Like like most things that we recommend is some things that we use. So, but you know how towards the end of the podcast, there's like this recommendation for some things like that. That's not what this was. Okay. The point of this podcast was to give you this empowering information. Yeah, if you want to do a symptom assessment, if you got any questions, like I'm an open book. I'm living a life of service. I do have health coaching services, which are really powerful. I can give you the contact information of people I've worked with, and it's just been a life-changing experience. Not because of me, but because together, like we reconnect with what Michaela said in the beginning, which is it's really rediscovering the way that you're meant to live, and having a better life, and we do that together. It's not me talking at you. So that's available to you if you want some support or assistance. And we have a great online community, by the way.
yeah, absolutely. So I think I want to end this with one. I mean, yeah, I want to end this with one big question for you. So if you had
You
a
didn't
magic,
give this to me before we got on.
no, I didn't. It's a surprise. So you're gonna have to think on the
All
spot. If you had, and so maybe you don't have as much time as you'd like to think about this response, but if you had a magic wand and you could just wave it, and everyone in the world would have this new habit, or this new thing that they would do, this like one thing that everyone would do daily, what would it be?
Honestly, if I had more time to think about it, I could probably come up with a really great, beautiful, creative answer. The first thing that came to mind was embraced animal foods, because animal foods have been, I think it's that whole dogma about red meat, animal foods, bad for the health, bad for the planet, saturated fat, clogged. That's the thing that has derailed the dietary world the most, I think. And if you can get past that and embrace the fact that, you know, we are animals, we've been eating animal foods for our entire existence, it's what made us human. That's not arguable at all, you know, in evolutionary biology and anthropology. It's only in this modern world that we have this audacity to think that we know better now and that we need to deviate from what it is that our ancestors used to do. If you can get past that and embrace animal foods, I think that's one of the biggest game changers for most people, because then it opens up a whole new world of eating. Because now, you know, you can eat butter. You can, you know, like, why are you starving? Because you can't eat these things that are actually very nourishing to your body. You've convinced yourself that you can't. So that's my first answer. If we come back and you ask me again and we do it over, it'd probably be something in the realm of meditation, mindfulness, having a vision, you know, that kind of thing. But my heart goes out to people because they struggle so much, and that's one of the linchpins that have made it so hard for people to actually do what they need to do from a dietary perspective.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And this little
Yep.
side note is like, I had this woman come to me the other few weeks ago, and she was saying how bad she suffered from a lot of autoimmune disease and a lot of things based in foundation. And she's like, well, I've been a vegan for the last 2 years. And I was like, well, you know, so there is those connections. And if you're doing what we're talking about and embracing animal products, that you can really reverse disease. So I would agree 100% with
Well, we're the same. Like you, I was a vegan for 2 years. That's what started me on my path. You know, and of course, I felt good for the first 6 months, and then things got worse. You know, so if you think about like what if I'm eating for nutrition and I'm trying to build this animal, the closest, most direct path to the nutrients that I need to build this animal is eating an animal, because
yeah,
I'm not going to build this out of lettuce.
yeah,
I'm not going to build this out of lettuce. Okay, this is. I mean, you got to eat a lot of lettuce.
yeah,
You got to get really creative with it. So, but anyway, and not to bash, like, because we've been there, done that, you know. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I appreciate you spending time with me today. I know we covered
yeah,
a
that
lot.
was fun.
Yeah, and I'll put all the links below so that people can dive in a bit more. I'll put your links to stuff about the booking time with you, or you're talking about with the consult, and we'll also have more information about the supplements. And then you guys can dive into those links and learn more. But for now, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate you taking your time to chat with me today.
Yeah, keep it up. You're doing great work. I really admire you. I like following you.